that's kind of your job as a writer, is to find your version, your voice, put it out there, and see where it goes.
Sometimes when you're writing about depression, it doesn't make you depressed, but it does evoke the memories of when you were. You know, it doesn't. You're not having necessarily a relapse, but you have to embrace that period and that time to talk about it with any kind of like a truth.
There's always something of yourself that you're going to put into that. And as you yourself change, the problem becomes whether or not you let your characters voice that, or if you still try to recapture the way you were back then.
And welcome to Writing Prose episode 21. We are down a Canete.
A Canete.
we always add to his name every time he's not here.
Yeah. I feel, he's dead. That's what happened.
Oh my god.
Right. No, he's in prison.
No. Well, he got shanked in prison for killing his. Yeah. It's sad, but he had it coming,
Oh my god.
You can't embezzle that much money from the mafia. Oh, you think he got by his art talent? Come on. No. He was... he
Eric,
made a lot of bad deals.
It's got away from me.
It was laundering money.
Fortunately, his children are practicing necromancers, so they're going to bring him back. I've already heard, that's in the works. Once you die in prison, they let you back out. So he'll probably come back, but he'll be just changed.
Oh my gosh.
I think you just spent like all of your energy, Gib. That was it.
That was it. Gib has nothing left to give.
Check out.
So that's how Gib's doing. How are you, Sai?
Awesome.
Wow, it was a long way.
Was that in any way convincing?
Not at all, no.
Oh.
Well, today we decided that we wanted to talk about begging, borrowing, and stealing. Basically, when do you tell the same kind of stories, or what stories do you like, and how do you keep it from being repetitive or annoying or pigeonholing yourself? Who do you borrow from? Is it yourself? Is it other authors? And yeah, we'll see what kind of degenerate place this takes us.
No kidding.
It always does. There's no point.
Well, it does. I mean, it's a fun topic because anybody who's writing, whether you've been established or you're up and coming, you are either trying to find your own voice or oftentimes emulating someone else's until you find your own voice.
Yep.
So you're at that point, you are then borrowing against somebody else. Everybody who's writing urban fantasy in the last 10, 15 years is being either like the Anita Blake series, the Jim Butcher series, the Patricia Briggs, and people like that. The Cat Harrisons. These were the icons that we have followed in the path thereof. Or they're like a Constantine type character off of Neil Gaiman. And so we're borrowing from those type of things and trying to invent our own voice. But there comes a point where you're writing for a while. You're like, do I have to reuse this theme? Do I have to reuse this plot point? Do I have to reuse this, maybe I didn't nail it the first time. Do I have to try again? And that's very frustrating because you want to be seen as creative and endeavoring, but sometimes you have to realize it's still a business. You're still trying to create a product that is ubiquitous enough that people want to buy. The more narrow it is, you find your 3 loyal readers. The broader it is, the more mass appeal it has.
Right.
So it's an interesting balancing act.
Well, and so like specifically for me, because I've never worried until like just recently, and the thing that has me kind of crippled in writing currently is the fact that I haven't ever considered the business side of it, like trying to be marketable or reach people. I've always written what I've felt just to kind of bleed it out. You know what I mean? And the thing that I've always found really kind of funny about that is that for for me, I end up writing a lot about being like sad or depressed or anxious or feeling like I'm not heard. And when I say it in terms like that, it comes across like I'm trying to be super edgelord. And that is very much not the goal. It's usually just when those feelings kind of come up. It's kind of one of my forms of therapy to get rid of it.
Sure.
The other thing is I am kind of obsessed with understanding other people's psyche. So like when I say something, watching how it resonates through other people. A good example, I just stood up in front of my unit, our last like squadron day, and ended up talking about depression because we're in Suicide Awareness Month. And so I stood up there and I was talking about sneaky depression and how, you don't always really see it coming in, and it doesn't always look a certain way, and it's not, trying to slice my wrists open. Like it can just be, I really want to get out of bed, and I've got, here's my laundry list of things that I can't wait to do. And then 8 hours later, I'm still under the covers. I haven't moved. And so I had this whole conversation about that standing up in front of my unit, and I saw people who I was actually really surprised about nodding along with me. Mm-hmm. And then I saw people that genuinely looked shocked at some of the things that I had said. And then like you could see the gears turning, like, ooh, maybe I should pay attention to some of the stuff going on in my life. And that's always what I kind of have strived for when it comes to a lot of my writing. But what that means is as I find new ways to get the same point across, I have a tendency to want to express it, which means I'm really just saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, but I'm saying it in different ways. So maybe more people will get it. And my concern is that people are going to be like, man, Shae needs help. Like that's going to be like the only thing that they get from any of my writing.
That is the takeaway.
I'm actually doing fine, but that's the fear. You're horrible, Sai.
Just saying.
No, you're hitting the head. You're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to things like that. Before we started the actual recording of the stream, we mentioned things like when you get mentally or talent-wise pigeonholed in a style. Whether that's a Sylvia Plath's or like Sai brought up before a stream, like George O'Keeffe, like a lot of the paintings do look like flower vaginas over and over and over and over. But that's not necessarily who you are. I mean, look at Picasso. You could go back and find his art before his when he did his his Cubism style. Yeah. He was a legitimate, just straight painter. So he found a different thing because he wanted to break out of that thing. But then he got stuck in like, I have to do this impressionistic Cubist style, because that's how he was known. Like
that's the same with Dali,
right?
Everyone knows Dali's surrealism stuff, but he actually did a shit ton of really religious paintings too that are just phenomenal and breathtaking, and most people don't even realize that like that's the same person who did Melting Clocks. Like those are the same thing.
Like we all know Jim Carrey, the actor, the comedic goofball, talking out of his butthole, But if you every time he tries to break out and do something dramatic, people are like, we allow it. You get the Truman Show, but that still is kind of quirky. But he tries to do other things no one wants it. I don't know. Sai, you watched a lot of TV back in the day. Did you ever watch a made-for-TV movie? It was called Doing Time on Maple Drive.
No.
It was roughly 1990, 1992, somewhere around that time period. And it's the story about this kid coming over from college and coming out to his parents, and he was scared, of course, and all these things. But Jim Carrey played the older brother who was a raging alcoholic. But the family doted on the younger brother, not him. So that's the first time I saw Jim Carrey. He's like, he was this amazing dramatic, but he wasn't like, it wasn't like in living color. It wasn't like, him like doing the Vera de Milo character or the Fire Marshal Bill. But like, no, I was like, holy crap, this guy can act. And then once he started doing the talking out of his butt stuff, he was forever pigeonholed in being that goofball when he actually has a dark side, a talented side, a dramatic side. But, that's not what his fans wanted. And every time he tried to bring that back.
That was the same with Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. Because he got, super pigeonholed in doing all of these crazy voices and talking really fast and everything had to be a joke. And then he did that that one really dramatic show where he was a like a film photographer, like developer or whatever, and he was a stalker.
It's like 1 hour photo or something.
Yes,
like 1 hour photo.
It. Oh,
where he was following these families. Yeah,
and you see him in that role, and it was like, wow, that's really, really well acted and very unsettling.
Look no farther than Dead Poets.
Yeah, but see, even in Dead Poets, like you could look at it and go, okay, well, this is still Robin Williams, because he's still a quirky kind of professor, and so it may not be as over the top as like Mrs. Doubtfire, but you could still kind of hit it in the
no, he was unorthodox at most. I'm sorry, I love Dead Poets. I'm going to defend it.
I'm a Dead Poets.
I'm not saying it's bad. I love Dead Poets Society.
No. That's not it. I'm defending the integrity of the character. That character itself was not the wild card. His students were a bunch of freaks. LaWanda.
Well, no, they were potential freaks, and he helped unlock that. And that's, yes, he still did goofy stuff like stand on the desk, do this, do that. I mean, he was very over the top for the straight lace button up style of that preparatory school.
Yeah, private school, exactly.
And but it came through. It actually is one of those unique cases. Normally, when he does a dramatic role, he wears a beard because he's such an expressionistic face. And this is one of the times he was clean shaven to do a dramatic role.
Because like Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. You know, he's got such a thick beard. You know, it's not the birdcage. You know.
I love the birdcage.
Well, everybody loves the birdcage, but that's one of those. But that's one of those people that can vacillate between drama and comedy, and people accept it. You know, he was known obviously from Work and all his, and it's like you said, his stand-ups, his speed style, his cocaine-fueled comedy. You know. Yeah. And unfortunately, his demons got him in the end. So
yeah, well, and what I think was
more
really
cocaine. That's the key.
Is the way that he seemed to kind of go in between the two, because he was very much pigeonholed as a comedic actor. He had a long career, and so the reason that he's had so many of these dramatic roles is because he had them pretty well spaced out one from another, and there was a lot of filler in between of the slapstick comedy. So there's people who only know one of his dramatic works and don't realize that he's had multiple, depending on when they kind of got introduced to Robin Williams. But Jim Carrey has not had that same kind of success. Most of the time when Jim Carrey does a dramatic role, despite the fact that he can absolutely kill it and do phenomenal, it's like it's unacceptable, because most people, especially like our age, got introduced to Jim Carrey with The Mask, with Ace Ventura, with things where he's just so completely out in left field that pulling him back into any normalcy was like him delivering a very simple line doesn't even work. Like, look at The Cable Guy. The Cable Guy had a lot of moments that were supposed to be just plain straight, like simple lines through it, and he made that a fucking psychotic thing. Like, it was every time he said something, you went, that, I know it's a normal sentence, but that didn't sound right.
I actually did not like him in that movie, and I did not like Matthew Broderick in that movie.
I mean, it's a hard movie to watch.
It's an actor.
I feel like
I didn't think the acting was very good.
It was a rough.
It was a time and a place, and they were trying something different for their both respective careers, you know.
Yeah.
But
I love Matthew Broderick in dramatic roles. He just
that wasn't really, but it was a weird. It wasn't like a dramatic role.
It was a dark comedy. It was a dark comedy.
Role, yeah.
It was a cruel dark comedy, and it was meant to be, and it was like it's about a stalker, for God's sake, you know, like that's really what it was about. So
yeah,
he hooked the cable guy up, and he just kept following around, becoming his best friend and pushing himself into his life. You know, like if you put that movie in any other context, it's single white female. You know, like it's
yeah.
It's just a stalker.
See, I enjoyed single white female though.
Well, because that wasn't trying to be any kind of a comedy. The Cable Guy is distinctly trying to be a comedy, just with a dark bend. And I feel like they hit too much comedy and not enough dark, and it just became weirdly disturbing and unsettling.
Well, like when we're barring against our own ideas, it's like when I write the Aggie books, the Hammer of Witches books, that is similar to Technomancer, but there's enough of difference. They both have tragic heroes, but in one I take it more action adventure, but with depression and hope and all the other shit. And Aggie's character is still like, it's less action adventure and more leaning on the drama side. But I'm still borrowing a lot of the exact same themes from both book series and writing them out that way because I like a tragic hero, and I keep beating that over the head with these type of characters because those are the ones I relate to the most, and I think that's my style, I guess. I like a good tragic hero, and
So that's
sometimes you can make a joke.
That's a good point. Like because these two worlds kind of butt up against each other, right? And Aggie, the Hammer of Witches came from your character in Technomancer.
Yep.
How do you keep them still distinctly different stories?
Tone. Like Technomancer has, like I said, it's more Fast and the Furious. The action's over the top, the things are over the top, but when you have these moments of time to let it breathe, let the character breathe, and let it, like, the moments set in, then you have moments of doubt, depression, anxiety, frustration, love, all those emotions you have when the world is quiet, you know. Right. And at the end, it's always about hope. No matter how dark it gets, you have to have hope. Otherwise, why do you keep going? And the Aggie books, she is, I say this lovingly, self-centered. She thinks about herself a lot. Yeah. But she cares about her friends, but it's like she's very insular in her thoughts because we all go through those moments. Like you were saying before when you were giving that speech in front of others, when you start seeing the head nods, it's hard for us as people to step outside of our own world and see other people and realize that they might be going through the same things we're going through or understand the things that we're going through. And the Aggie character doesn't step out of her bubble as much. It's her fatal flaw because it's and I built that in that way because, and it's not a guy thing or a girl thing. This is just this character thing. So the tones, the Hammer Witch is a little bit more grounded, a little more dramatic heavy, and the other stuff is, the Technomancer stuff is a little more bombastic, but they have a lot of repeating themes and elements. You can cut a vertical slice out of any one of the books and you'll see these repeating patterns because that's what I want my heroes to do, is eventually have to like break out of their own shells, you know, because we as people, it's easy to just say, I've got my 5 to 7 closest friends, my lover, my partner, whatever, and a couple of satellite friends, and that's all I need in my world. But there are people beyond that. You are touching lives without realizing it. Other people might need your help, or you could help them. And that's just living.
Yeah. Well,
that's overrated.
Fuck. I take a nice pretty moment, you just shit right on it. Just
no. I'm just as you're describing that, I'm thinking about my own life, and I'm like, okay, I've got Shae, and I've got Shae, and then there's Shae.
Okay.
Yep.
But I expand that, right? And I've got my mom, I've got my stepdad, I've got Luke and Jason, and we've got our awesome channel members, and some of them I talk to more than others. We've got Eric. Yeah, that too.
Eric's dead.
We've got
Eric's
Gib,
dead.
Eric, Woodrow.
Yeah.
We've got Lola.
Yeah.
People like Rini. But I mean, that's as that circle expands, those people and you interact with those people less and less. And it's like once you get to about the third ring, you don't really know people at all.
That's true.
They're just acquaintances. So then you stop and reflect, how much am I really impacting those people's lives?
Yeah.
Things like you don't know. I mean, it's psychologically we can convince ourselves like it doesn't matter, but you don't know what you don't know. You're not inside those heads, This is not a feather in my cap. I'm just saying it because it's true. I had a fan reach out to me and tell me they were in a dark place, a really dark place, and they were going down a road of like self-deletion, and it was the villains books that made him laugh and gave him a chuckle because a friend said, hey, just get some audible credits, and he wrote me this letter, this very, very nice letter telling me all this stuff, and I said, will you write the foreword to the next villains book then? and I just want your voice to be what comes first. And his name was John Bruno. He's a wonderful guy, but you don't know what you're impacting. How many ripples away, you know, and it could be your works, it could be your laughter, it could be your love, it could be anything. You just don't know. You know, like, I'm not saying that to put that onus on you, like, oh, now you have to go out and discover everybody's secrets. Just be cognizant that lives impact lives in ways you don't realize.
True.
Well, we are really off topic, but
We are. We really are.
We always are. But see,
which is fine.
That's
you know,
the funny
it's
thing, though.
the three of us have been left without adult supervision, and this is what happens.
It's all Eric's
I know.
fault.
I don't have my like. He's like our Yoda. He just is so wise.
Well, he'll like when he hears us about to careen off path, he'll just like throw out a, let me ask you a very in-depth question, Sai. And then it's like everyone else is like, well, we have to shut up. That question was for Sai because that's what Dad said. Dad said it was Sai's question.
Daddy Eric is. Now listen,
Oh my God, I will not call him
very
Daddy.
calm and call him Daddy Eric.
Oh, that's gonna show up on the graphic.
No,
Big Dad E. Big Dad E.
Dad E.
there better be a lot of money involved.
The thing, okay, so one of the things that I think is funny about how you were talking about you don't know how you impact people, that I think that is probably one of my, I don't want to say downfalls because I don't feel like it's necessarily a downfall, but one of the things that definitely pigeonholes a lot of my writing is the desire to reach people in some kind of a profound way, as opposed to just writing something for entertainment value or writing something to give someone something to do on a train ride or a bus ride home. Everything that I write, I always have the intent of hopefully reaching somebody who otherwise felt that they were alone in the world. And I think that that's partially why a lot of what I write ends up being so overly emotionally involved.
Or it can come off as, I'm not saying this about anything of yours that I've read,
You can
but
just
I'm
say
saying
it. We don't.
no, I'm saying if you follow that line, you also risk when you're kind of hypnotized by the potential emotional impact of what you're writing. I mean, it has the possibility of coming off as pompous or pretentious.
Very, yes.
So, I mean, I guess there are a lot of things you can get hypnotized when you're striving to create something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, however you want to put it, huffing your own farts, as Gib would probably say, or just getting so lost in the complexity of the world that you're trying to create and the people that you're trying to reach. In the end, you have to kind of come back to that center of what's the story I'm trying to tell, and who am I trying to tell it to. And in the end, that's all you really have control over, because you might not even reach the people you're trying to reach.
That's very
and the
true.
story might take a direction that you're not even intending from the beginning.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that that's probably something that stops me in a lot of writing, because it's like wanting to be so rigid in how the story goes that I don't give it room to breathe on its own. And then I wonder why I keep running into walls. And it's like, well, if I set this up where the natural progression would be that this happens and I don't want that to happen, I either have to change the setup or change what I'm writing.
well, and I think that goes back to the whole style, or I guess technique that you use for writing. You can either, I don't know what Gib uses, if he just sits down at a typewriter and goes until he has enough. But at least for me,
typewriter in a smoky room,
yeah,
with a little thing of bourbon.
at least for me, I work best when I have an outline, when I've sat down, when I've thought about, okay, where do I want to end up? Because you kind of have to, in my opinion, work backwards. If you just start with the characters, you have no idea of where you're going, and that can just turn into a convoluted mess. So I work backwards. I start with, here's where I want to end up. Now, how am I going to get there? And how far back do I have to go before I can label that the quote unquote beginning and I have enough there to make it an actual full story. Because if I'm setting out to, I don't know, if I'm setting out to tell Band of Brothers, right? Do I go back to the beginning of their training, or do I go back to when they all met before that, or do I fast forward to where they're all shipping out, or how far back do you have to go? And then for me, if I want to actually get to that destination, I have to plot out the beats. If I give the characters that much onus to kind of dictate the story to me, then chances are they're probably not going to lead to that result that I wanted at the very beginning. And that's my main other than the fact that I wrote myself into a corner. That's my main problem with my series right now, is that you give those characters a voice, a life, and they will take it and they will go where they want to. And that's both the power and the curse of the world that you're creating. So Shae, I guess my question to you is, do you start with the outline like I'm describing, to where you have that you're building those I don't want to call them boundaries, but you're building the borders of your story that you can't stray past?
I don't typically write anything long enough that needs one. Normally what I write is over within 10 pages if it even gets to that point.
Okay, well, let's take Bathory, for instance, right?
Yeah, the thing that I haven't touched because I'm terrified to. So in Bathory, I have the whole background.
Right.
But I know that is not where we're starting, because I hate with a passion comics that start with in the beginning. Like, oh my gosh, please, for the love of all that is holy, like, I don't want to go to the beginning. I want to go where the action is, and then tell me the beginning another time.
No, see, you can't even do that in a comic, because like in a movie, you could start near the end and be like, well, how did we end up in this fucked up place? And then you flash back.
I mean,
and then you spend
a comic.
It doesn't flow right.
It does if you do it.
That's called prolipsis, by the way.
I disagree. Not with you, with what Shae is.
No, I'm right. It's prolipsis, but it's.
I can't kick him because it'll fuck up the visual format of the episode. But I don't think that in a strictly visual medium that kind of thing works.
Comics isn't strictly visual.
It is strictly visual.
Well, okay.
There is no audio.
So here's and this is where I disagree on how people create comics, because I think that people underestimate what you can do in comics. I've seen plenty of comics that start you right towards the end, and then on the page turn, the little caption at the top would do the same fucking thing that they would do in a movie, where they do like a slow pan of a house and it says 1 year earlier.
Okay. I don't disagree that you can do that. I disagree that I have seen it done well.
Well, that just sounds like you've read bad things.
Well, of course I have.
No, here's the thing. There's a lot of do's and there's a lot of don'ts. We talked about it on these things all the time. There's like a lot of the rules to writing. The guy, Elmore Leonard, has a lot of rules to write. Just say said, do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. But it's like anything else.
I ignore all this.
Well, it's you once you know the rules, you know when to break the rules. You know, Eric's style of art is stylized. You know, and you go back to he even says his previous art when he was beginning was way more traditional looking, and then he's gotten his style. But he's learned the rules of drawing to now he knows how to break the rules and still make it look stylized and gorgeous. You know, and the same thing with writing is the same way. You have to learn these basic steps, like the 3-act structure, the setup, the like basically it's like all the same parts of the movie Prestige. You know, here's the the promise, the pledge, the turn, the prestige. You know, it's the exact same thing when you're telling a story. You know, here I'm showing you one thing, I do something shifty, and then boom, here's the end. You know, and that's once you get to break it down, now you can know how do I massage this a little bit here, a little bit there. I mean, if you have something like the Bathory, which you've described a little bit in the past, and I've picked up through osmosis. open with someone dying. Literally, you open with a panning shot of like a tub of blood and someone slowly being bled out, and then you can then do like 6 months earlier or 10 years later or whatever you want, but just show this gorgeous scene of someone dying, and it's like you think it's one way, and then you recontextualize it why they died, and you have a lot of different ways you can do something like that. But what I tend to do is I have got this whiteboard. It's over on this side of me, off camera. I literally just start star mapping out different ideas, and so I can step back and look at them like, okay, character A can go here and do this, okay, then or they could do it this way, or they could do it this way, and I look what makes the most sense, you know.
So you plot it visually.
Oh, I have to. When I first start writing something, I have to have my theme. You know, it's kind of like, you ever listen to a song and you've built into your head canon what the song is about, then you read what the artist intended, and like, that has nothing to do with what I created in my head canon.
Yes.
The music hit me in such a way, I make a mental video about what the song is about, and then I read the liner notes. And it's like, oh, this was about my addiction to whatever, and you know, like, nope, not me. To me, it's about a young boy who wanted to ballet dance, and damn it, you can't tell me otherwise, you know, or something stupid,
Yeah.
you know. But so whenever I go into a book, I have to have, what is my theme? Like, as if I'm listening to a song that evokes an emotion, what is that feeling? And that way, as long as I know that when I'm writing, the words kind of always stay within that wavelength. Like the Technomancer, it was very clear. Like, when I was stationed up in Alaska, I had just I got there as an E4, as a senior airman, but I was going to put on sergeant within 35 days of showing up. Met all these cool people. They're very nice to me. And then I made sergeant. And then all of a sudden, I'm one of the enemy, because there was more airmen and there was like a shortage of NCOs. And so it's winter time. My people I had just met are now ignoring me. I have no real peers because there's like hardly any other E5s running around at the time on my flight. So I live alone. I'm in the dark. I'm cold. I don't know anybody. And I had that whole no man is an island thing going on because I felt so alone, so isolated. So I was like, that theme is what stuck with me for Salem character in the Technomancer books, because he has lived so long alone. But you can tell yourself you can do this for a very long time. But humans need human connection. They just do, you know. And so as long as that was my theme, the Technomancer books kind of wrote themselves. You got a dude who feels alone. He lies to himself that he doesn't need to be. And then once he has these opportunities to like try a little bit, you know, he steps outside and actually starts caring again. But then he gets smacked down for caring. He gets back up and repeat. And the same thing. So once you know your theme or know your tone, however, whatever your headcanon is to say, this is how I want to like encapsulate my thoughts, just go forward. And then map it out from time to time. What would look cool? You know, are you going for slick? Are you going for earnest? Are you going for depth? Are you going for, you know, butthole jokes? It doesn't matter. As long as you know what your tone is, the rest kind of falls in line.
Well, and I guess me saying, like, specifically when it comes to the Bathory, I guess me saying that I don't really plot it out or I don't really know where to go is kind of unfair, because like I said, I have the background nailed down as far as the timeline goes. The exact specifics of how that would be presented, that I don't necessarily have nailed down, but I know the history of what I'm trying to do. I know my end scene. I had it like kind of popped into my head when thinking through this whole thing. It has not wavered. It is exactly what I think we want. I think it's going to be really cool. So I know the end scene. And thanks to Gib talking through this whole bit, I just got my first scene. So I have it. I haven't put it to paper. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's probably what I need to do, is I need to say, okay, here are the beats and the panels for the last scene. This is what I want to have happen. This is how I want it to have happen. Because then it's like my brain only has so much processing power, and I am holding on to these things for fear of forgetting them and losing them. So if I put them down on paper, then I have them. My brain can then free it up to start working on the middle and the beginning and all of that. And so that's what I need to do, really. I just need to sit down. Here is the end scene. Here is the opening scene. Here are the things that happen in between, and I need to figure out how I'm going to get there. But if I don't write it down, my brain won't have the freedom to work through it. So
Yeah.
thank
so
you.
write down.
Let me see.
Write down whatever he just
You
gave
see that whiteboard behind me?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just me doing like all types of notes and doodles just to like get myself to like do exactly what you just said. Because if you don't, it
Well, and how many times have you like written yourself a really cryptic note and you're like, I'll know what it means, and then you go back to it and you're like, what was I talking about? That was a good idea.
One, my handwriting sucks, so there's that, and it's so I have, like I said, I have tons like right over my shoulder, on that art table behind me are 2 different legal pads. They're just filled with ideas for different stuff, and like again, I'll go back through and like. The problem is I'll tend to like do like a little like pentagram circle to like this idea stays, but then I'm like. But now, like, I gotta flip through 19 of these goddamn legal pads, figure out which ideas I want, and then I gotta collate them into an actual thing. Oh no, I do it all the time. Then I'm like, what the hell did I write? Because I write so poorly that if I don't do block print, I can't read my own writing.
Yeah. No, and it's so interesting the ways that we kind of stop ourselves from creating, which is hilarious because that's all that we really want to do. Is like, I just want to sit down and tell a really good story. And
can I pause real fast? I want to evoke the spirit of dead Eric Canete because he would say something like, "Wow, like listening to you all is it baffles my mind to hear you all say that because I don't do any of this. I just write dumb shit to sell books, like whatever is needed in the moment. I just do it. I don't think nearly as far ahead. Yeah, because I can hear him. Like my brain is like waiting for him to just say something very similar to those words.
Oh, that's hilarious. That
rest in peace.
Stop it! It's so
sadness.
Bad. Oh, Gibbs morbid.
Press F in the chat to pay respects.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Big Daddy E, you will be missed.
Okay, so Sai.
So Shae.
What are you worried about kind of pigeonholing yourself into when it comes to storytelling?
So here's my thing, because I'm more of an editor right now than a writer. So going back to my writing. The main thing that I worry about is that, like Gib is saying, there's a certain tone to what you write, and given the way my life was when I was doing my writing, I can't imagine that it was any kind of a steady or consistent tone. So I guess my worry is in going back to that, and especially since I've said this before, that I'm likely to rewrite my stories. Just to correct some of the problems that I have with them. That the people, and there are many, that love this story, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but the people that like the story from the beginning, I'm then going to lose as that changes. So
yeah.
Whether it's rewriting that story or writing follow-up stories, just not being able to recapture that same tone or because I'm in a different place than I was when I wrote those characters a couple of years ago than I am right now. So that's a concern for me. Yeah. Because I think as a writer, no matter what your character is, no matter how different from you that character is, there's always something of yourself that you're going to put into that. And as you yourself change, I think that the problem becomes whether or not you let your characters voice that, or if you still try, however ineffectually, to recapture the way you were back then. So that's what I'm thinking about now.
Yeah, I do think that that's probably one of the hardest things as a writer, is to try and write how you used to when you have grown beyond that point in your life. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff that I wrote that a lot of people liked when I was younger. And as much as I would like to be able to kind of recapture that and do that again, I'm not that person. And so it's one of those that would take a lot from me to be able to get back to that kind of a mindset. And I know for you, there was a whole plethora of things that were leading to why you wrote how you did, and as relentlessly, I think is a good word to use, as you did. So that's definitely a challenging thing, and I can see why. So we just won't sugarcoat it. So Cy wrote stuff when they were on medication. They kind of tweaked
A lot
it
of
a bit. Whole lot of narcotics, yes. So keeping that kind of in mind, I can see how so many writers, first off, writers are the reason writers write usually are because they're damaged and want to tell the story, and they have a unique ability to express that kind of trauma. So that's a huge theme with a lot of writers. And then add into that, the only time that I seem to successfully be able to exercise my demons is when I am drunk, high, etc.
And a lot of writers are that way.
Exactly. And so now it's like, okay, so now I have a person who's experienced an insane amount of trauma, who only feels like they can write when they're fucked up, and they really want to put out another book. Like, that is a dangerous formula.
And now they're completely clean, and have been for an extraordinarily long time, like years now.
But you
and
can
it's like,
you can see how people fall back into that, the throes of
because they want
addiction,
to bottle lightning again.
Exactly. Like, I feel like I had something special here, and I want to have that again. And then, I'm sure I can stop, despite the fact that I was a raging alcoholic. I could probably keep a handle on it this time. And it's like, that is the most dangerous thought that any addict has ever had in the history of ever.
Now, to be fair to myself,
okay.
This was not an illegal drug addiction.
No.
These were legally prescribed medications that I needed at the time. It's just a very nice side effect of them was that they allowed me an intense amount of focus on writing to the tune of 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And I was pumping out just thousands and thousands of words. And while that and that's the other thing. It's like, okay, well, I can try to do this, with all these different things in my life now. But like I said, is the audience going to respond? And how far am I willing to push myself for my audience?
Well, and so that's another thing, people that write from a really emotional place. That's another thing that you have to ask is how much of yourself are you willing to give over to your audience, and potentially put you back in a place that isn't a good place for you to be.
Right. One of my favorite series of stories right now, and it's got to be at least 5 novels worth at this point of writing, and it is so good. It's a Supergirl story. It is so good and so detailed and so just it's encyclopedic in its reference to canon and just the technology and the lore of the DC universe and all this kind of stuff. And it's so good. And it's on hiatus right now because the author, in having to deal with these phantoms, these just hauntingly difficult emotional and spiritual problems, in giving those to the characters, it's torn the author up to such a point that they have taken 9 months off from writing the stories, which they used to pretty much put out, every week. And it's like, is it worth it? Right? As a reader, I mean, you try not to be the heartless bastard and say, yeah, it's worth it. The story is really awesome. But I mean, in the end, was telling it worth it if you then have to go to therapy for 9 months to try to recover from it? And so, as a creative, Shae and Gib, where's the line? When does the story become not worth it?
So for me, when it consumes my life, when it becomes the thing that that has reign over what I do like day to day.
Okay, so are you talking effect or full control? Because that's what I'm saying. There are many shades. Like if you're writing someone who's depressed, that can't
Right.
help but touch certain aspects of your life. If you're fully burying yourself into that character to write from that place, but
So
you don't have to let that consume you.
I feel like that's a weird thing. Like I will experience something like depression, but when I write about depression, it's not like I'm re-experiencing it. Um, because I end up detaching myself from my own personal, like whatever it is that makes me depressed. And I end up looking at it as, okay, if I was someone who didn't understand anything about this, like what aspects of my depression did I truly find shocking when I realized that's what it was? And so I end up approaching it almost clinically, um, as far as dissecting out the bits that I think that people maybe would find interesting, compelling, or impactful. But have separated myself from my actual depression in order to be able to do that, unless it's poetry. Poetry is the only one that I can't do that with. And with poetry, I will ugly cry while I am writing it and have like a pint of ice cream afterwards. And then I'm like, all right, I feel better. But when it comes to like short stories and stuff, I usually end up I have a defense mechanism, basically. And no, Gib, no more ice cream with hummus. Shae eats weird shit. That was abysmal, and you kept eating, and I had to keep eating to hold.
Yeah, it was not good. I think. Yeah, I think. I don't know. I mean, I don't. I'm trying to find the best way to answer this because my stories take up so much of my time that I catch myself like, am I paying attention to my wife and child? Even if like I'm in the same room with them, I'm like sitting there with a legal pad out doing it myself.
Present? Yeah.
Am I present? Right. And I have to make conscious efforts to like make sure I am divorcing myself from that. Because like usually what I try to do mostly is like, so since I switched to full-time writer and I work from home, I take my son to school, I come home and I write from approximately 9 a.m. to about noon. Sometimes it's a lot of words, sometimes it's like 9 words. It really depends on what's going on that day. Can I get to the headspace and get to writing? And then I take a break, I clean house, I work out, I get back and start writing from like 2 to when they get home around 4:30. Wife picks them up. So maybe sometimes 5, depending. And then when they're home, I treat my work day as over, mostly. When they kind of respectively settle into their own little, we're all only children in this house, so when everybody settles into their own little respective like nooks of the house to do their thing, I will then go back to like, I'll start tinkering with some art or tinkering with some other outlining plot ideas or whatever. But it's so consuming as it is now that like I don't know what I would be like if I was on some kind of prescribed or not prescribed narcotic.
Mandated and enforced. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like, you know, I'm not. I could take an edible now. Fuck it. You know, who cares? I'm not in the service anymore. I don't do my thing anymore. But I don't. You know, because I don't know what my focus would be like. Because I'm scared actually. Like honestly, like when I was at the writers' convention, some of the writers they're like, oh, you know, would you like some edibles? Would you like some weed? Would you like this? I'm like, no, thank you. And it's not because I'm straight edge or anything like that. It's just I didn't for years, and I don't know what I would be like on it, and I don't want to have to like need it to be better, you know. Like, and it's.
Is it that, or do you not want to fuck with your formula that's working for you?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It's working, but can you make it better? You know, it's I hate to do Wonder Woman, you know, 84, but like things are good, but it could be better, you know. And if things could be better, what could I do? But then everything is like is a Faustian deal at a certain point. You know, you start going down certain paths to like, you know, elevate your brain to like create more art is very consuming, because any artist, any creative type has this desire to put out all the time. You know, I'm never not thinking about the next book or the next project or the next whatever. That's just who I am. And I have to like, I'm afraid what it would be like if that was magnified, you know, Maybe it would be better, maybe it'd be worse, but maybe I don't know what it would be, you know. And I don't know. I'm just being a real big baby about it. So
I don't necessarily think that's being a baby though, because when it comes to writing, where you are mentally is that is your workshop, you know. And so fucking with your workspace like that, and especially when you have no idea what the outcome or the consequence could be, that could be detrimental to your growth as a writer. That could be something that could completely destroy everything that you've already spent all this time to build. And for me, I'm a risk averse kind of person. I always have like the pros and cons, and I got to have a lot of pros and only a couple of cons in order for me to really go for something.
Yeah, net gain, yeah.
And so when I'm looking at something like that, it's like, okay, well, the pros are this could maybe possibly help me write better. The cons are I could get addicted to it. I could need it. I could have to go meet someone in a shady back alley to get it. Like, you know, when you get mixed into certain worlds, things can get really weird. Like, people could steal from you. There's just a lot. And I'm like, you know, there's a whole lot of cons for like not a real solid pro. I don't see the point.
You said earlier about getting into headspaces, and sometimes that's what it takes. And like, it's the if you're writing something, like, it's like, yes, sometimes when you're writing about depression, it doesn't make you depressed, but it does evoke the memories of when you were. You know, it doesn't. You're not having necessarily a relapse, but you have to embrace that period and that time to talk about it with any kind of like a truth. You know, like I'm 15,000 words into the next Aggie book. And it's funny because I just have a scene where she's sitting there talking with the Adamson character, and he basically he's like, "Why are you doing what you're doing?" And she's making some excuses like, "No, you're an addict." She's like, "I've gotten better. I don't." He's like, "No, you don't get better. You just live with it." And it's like, and he had to like hit her with that kind of thing. So, and we're all addicts in our own way. Whatever you live with your addictions. You don't really beat them. You can pause them, but they still exist there. Every steps and all the steps, like, this is something you live with. You know, it's always under the skin, and it takes constant effort to like keep it at bay. You know, and sometimes we slip, sometimes we fall, sometimes we like stand back up. You know, and writing is, you know, do it from joy if you can. You know, doing it from depression to get it out is catharsis if that's what you have to do, but you don't need to make up new things to feel that low to write again.
Right. Or put yourself in harmful relationships and situations. And so it's like, oh, this is going to make a great book once I finally pull myself out of this traumatic thing.
Well, I mean,
like,
if I could ever survive to publish. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Well, there are certain truisms, like you can't write about New York if you haven't been to New York. You can Google, you can street map it all you want, but you don't know the smell. You don't know the mood. You don't know the vibe, the feel. You know, you can't write about something unless you don't talk about bungee jumping if you've never done it. You know, these are just, you know.
Shae, I'm worried for the smell of New York when we get there. No, thank you.
We'll be fine.
It's just, could we not breathe?
We can try. Do you want me to get you a can of that oxygen?
Yeah,
from pure oxygen.
From Spaceballs.
Oh, God.
No, they have it. They sell
Harry Air.
Pure oxygen, yeah. Anyway, Sai, do you have any other little bits that you wanted to add into this?
I mean, I did originally, but I feel like it's so there are directions that we go kind of off the beaten path with these discussions, and I feel like mine we took a hard, you know, right, and I don't think taking the hard left now would really be conducive to the discussion.
Did you map it out? Because I need to see it visually.
I did.
Okay.
I need the star map. I don't know what's going on.
Clusters.
Anymore.
It's clustered.
Well, Gib, did you have any other little bits that you wanted to throw out there?
You know, like, I think we'll just to circle back around to the point which we were saying earlier was like, don't be afraid to borrow from yourself, and don't be afraid to try new things about yourself. You know, if you haven't written a comedy, try it. If you haven't written something depressing, try it. You know, And if you don't know what you're doing, go to things that you already enjoy, and start by emulating, and then figure out what works for you. Make it your material at that point, because we're all emulating something that we've begged, borrowed, and stealed from an entire library of the world before us that came before us, because we've consumed it or been. So you can't say it's unique. Nothing you're doing is unique. It's my stories are not unique. My characters are, but like the themes, like an urban fantasy world, we've seen that. Even like there are stories about Elizabeth Bathory out there. You were telling your version. It doesn't matter. You are borrowing from things that you love and turning it into your own. So don't think you're not thieving. You are elevating. However, you got to justify it in your head.
Right. Yeah, whatever bullshit excuse you have to make up for swiping, which is another things that artists call it. Homage.
Right. Yeah, like don't tell the exact same story clearly. But we've got how many people, things come in waves. So if you look at the indie comic scene, we had a ton of werewolf comics.
Right.
Like a shit ton that all hit at the same time. And now
fuck werewolves, man.
Now we're going into a ton of fucking vampire comics. We got Dracula, we got Nosferatu, we got all kinds of stuff that's coming out. So understand that just because a story has been told, there's a reason that stories continually get retold, because there's always a new audience that might discover it. There's always new readers. There's always new takes. And that's kind of your job as a writer, is to find your version, your voice, put it out there, and see where it goes. And if it's something that's good, if you caught lightning in a bottle, then congratulations, that's awesome. Don't think that everything you do is going to be that, and don't get caught in the vicious cycle of attempting to chase that, because that is usually a depressing venture that does not end the way you would hope. But don't be afraid to keep going and to push yourself and see what else. I will also
add on, don't be afraid to be absurd, and I mean this, because some people, when they're looking to write their story, they're looking to be, they're trying to hit this impact, this meaningful crater that they punch the world and the ripples come out. But sometimes, I'm just going to bring up two stories real fast. One, I met her, played D&D with her at the con. She's got a couple of good books. I'm reading one right now, but she also has this one. Her name is R.E. Carr, and one of her books is called The Accidental Summoner, and it's about this person that accidentally summons a demon by when they drop their burrito, and it creates this pentagram on the floor. It's very silly, but when you start with something silly, that's your hook. And a good comedy, a great comedy, has oceans of pain underneath it. If you ever watch Scrubs or MASH or these things, it's like you could have all the slapstick in the world, but the moment that person dies or that thing happens, and it's just like it hits that much harder. You can, if you want to tell your dramatic story, do it through comedy. And the other one is he's a great author, and he's a good dude to hang out with. His name's Matt Dinneman, and he's got these series of books called Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I just finished the 5th one, and I can't wait for the 6th. But it's like, the short version is aliens invade Earth, and pretty much took a whole bunch of people who survived the invasion and put them basically in a televised dungeon crawl, and they get power up in levels, and they have to basically kill everything, or themselves or the monsters. But it's absurd. It's weird. His cat now talks. It's goofy. But once the goofiness starts wearing off and these moments to breathe, the character Carl, you start getting these flashes of his previous life and the pain that he's feeling, and the realization that's everything happened so crazy at once, but now he's I literally have to kill other people to survive, and I don't know what's going to happen, and most people don't make it past a certain level. And it's got a lot of the tropes we know from, say, the Hunger Games or Squid Games or all the games, but with a different flair to it. And the dude's dude's doing very well for himself. But I recommend both these styles. Start with absurd, and then sneak your drama in the back door.
Sorry. I like it. All right.
The other thing I would say on top of don't be afraid to be absurd, and yeah, I'm bringing it back to 5 minutes ago when Gibbs started that.
It was 3.5, you hyperbolic bitch. So
it was 8. The other thing is don't fall in love with yourself. You know, don't forget why you started writing to begin with. You know, there had to be joy in there somewhere. Find that joy. Keep that joy. Don't be Eric Canete.
That's
and do it just for the money.
Training.
Oh my gosh! All right, Gib, you got our.
Yep.
Would
Give
you
me
rather?
All right, so Shae, since you brought it up, between 1 and 76.
52.
52. Let's see if it was taken. It was not.
Ooh.
Okay. Would you rather never be able to get a haircut again or never be able to shave again?
Haircut. Just, no. Haircut.
Okay, as someone with a significant interest in Shae's answer, I'm reversing Shae's answer.
No, you're not.
Yes,
Haircut.
I am.
Just a hairy Shae.
Ew, no.
That's
walking around the Pacific Northwest, the hairy Shae.
I would rather that than like cars crashing behind her because she has like this 90-foot span of hair flowing off the top of her head out her window and down the highway.
It just said I could never get a haircut. It didn't say that my hair couldn't end up shorter.
Well,
there's just other ways that.
Don't try and get around the evil genie. It always comes back to bite you.
No.
All right, Sai, what would you like?
I have a hair burn.
Shit. 36?
Let's see if it was taken. It was not. All right. Ooh, interesting. Would you rather have psychic powers or the ability to remember every fact you've ever learned? Oh, gosh. Read other people's minds or have like eidetic memory to the internet?
You already have an eidetic memory.
I wish. God, that is so tempting because psychic powers you could abuse the fuck out of, and I'm gonna go with memory.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah, I tend
That's
to,
gonna be annoying.
When we used to like joke around, like some friends were like, "Wouldn't it be great to have superpowers?" I'm like, I don't think so, because like there's a learning curve with your superpowers. So if like, you turned on psychic powers day one, imagine you're driving, some guy cuts you off, like, man, fuck, I hope that guy fucking dies, and you put that in their head, they, like, oh shit, okay, just keep driving.
That's telepathic projection though, but being just psychic.
Well, here's the thing: psychic is so like.
I mean, you could very easily just have that thought psychically enter his mind, and it could freak him out to the point that he crashes. So.
Right.
That's what Gib was saying. I'm saying like the ability to receive though, that'd be tempting. Only if you could control it though. You wouldn't want to fall into that. You can't ever turn there. There needs to be an off switch.
Like, did you get to the second villain's book, Shae? Villain's Pride.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm on it now.
Okay, have you gotten to the superhero battle at the end?
No.
Okay, I won't touch it then. Okay.
Okay.
Some of the stuff we're talking about happens, and like Jackson he says, my real power is like I just make things real. So he starts evoking reality on superheroes, and the powers go very crazy, very fast. Like, what would happen? Like, just because you're super strong doesn't mean you have endurance. We just assume that we do because we read Legions of comic, but super strength doesn't mean you're bone strong. You ever seen a power lifter go wrong?
Yes.
Yeah. Watch a prolapsed anus. Yeah, that happens. So.
Yeah, or like you rip your own arms off.
Right.
Like your arms can lift the weight. That doesn't mean your skeleton can support it.
Right. All right. Someone give me a number between 1 and 76.
Sai. Pick a number.
31.
31. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. Oh my God. Would I rather have to keep a terrible haircut for a month or let my mother dress me for a month? Well, I already have the terrible haircut, so I'll just stick with that because my mom has no sense.
I see. My mom is fashionable.
Let's go ahead.
I'd let my mom dress me for a month.
Oh my god.
I'm already like, do I get hair back for that month? You know, like, what happens?
Right? Side, keep in mind, my mom is the one that saw that leather top and went,
Yeah, she's the one who
my daughter should
adjusted
have this.
Yeah, she's the one who did the
I was
thing
thinking about
to
me.
push them all up. So
I was thinking about me, and I've dealt with a bad haircut for 6 months, but I would not let my mom dress me, period.
That's fair. I feel like your mom would probably, would take that power and abuse the fuck out of it if she could dress you for a month.
Pink tutu.
Right. Oh, no. All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us for episode 21. This was a really fun one. Hopefully Eric will be back for episode 22. I guess we'll just have
if
to
he
wait
rises from the dead, we'll see what happens.
We'll see. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Red Valkyrie. Ring that bell. Maybe even become a member, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Writing Prose. Please like, share, and subscribe if you've enjoyed our content. You can also become a channel member or visit our merch store to help support us. We're currently accepting fan-submitted stories for anonymous, on-air review later in the season. Send your submissions to redvalkyrie.writingprose@gmail.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.